Hello, and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. Let's have another quick update on a range of markets, and we're going to start with S&P 500. To be honest, in this update, we don't see anything of particular interest. Most of the things are same as we've been discussing for quite a while already. Looking at S&P 500, the intermediate cycle has been going on for 196 days. And usually these cycles last for just over half a year. So if it was any other time of the year right now for S&P 500, there would have been a pretty good chance that the intermediate cycle would have finished over here at the end of September with a normal duration for this cycle. However, the elections are approaching in the US over the next few weeks, and the uncertainty about those elections might actually bring the markets a little bit lower. So for that reason, I think the intermediate cycle is going to stretch a little bit. And for that reason as well, I think the ongoing daily cycle that has been going on for only 11 days so far will still see a significant decline down into the intermediate cycle low over the next few weeks. So just as I mentioned in some of my previous updates, for that reason, I don't think this bounce is going to last that long. As I mentioned, it's likely to go for, say, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe poke above this upper range of the Bollinger Bands over the next week or so before it turns around and goes back down into the election time. Moving on to the optimism index on S&P 500, you see that generally a good buying opportunity comes when this optimism index is at least as low as around 45, or maybe even significantly lower, somewhere around 30. At the most recent low a couple of weeks ago, this optimism index only came as low as 55, which is quite high for the end of the intermediate cycle. That's another reason why I think a further drop in optimism about the markets is likely over the next few weeks. Next, looking at the US dollar. US dollar is red today, but after a significant drop over the last several months, I still think we should see some strength in the US dollar for a short while before it drops into the end of the ongoing short-term daily cycle. These cycles usually last for a couple of months. The ongoing short-term daily cycle is now 34 days old. So I think we still have about a week or two of some bounce, maybe after retesting this 50-day moving average, before coming down into a modest decline into the end of the daily cycle. And possibly that bounce over the next 1 or 2 weeks will bring gold a little bit lower. So the intermediate cycle on gold is now 199 days long. This is a little bit long. Usually these cycles last for about a half a year, but of course they can stretch. There is a small chance that the intermediate cycle and the daily cycle in gold did finish over here at the end of September. I would give that scenario possibly, say, around 40% chance, but I'm still waiting for a more significant decline in gold to make sure I am really buying when everybody is pessimistic, when this proverbial blood is on the streets. Was the blood on the streets at the end of September? Well, looking at the optimism index on gold, it is possible that the end of September was a buying opportunity before the rally into the next intermediate cycle in gold. As you see, over the last couple of years, the buying opportunities did come when this optimism index on gold came just somewhere around 50 to 55, and that's where we were at the end of September. But looking at a longer history over the last couple of years and longer, usually a nice buying opportunity in gold comes when this optimism index is closer to 30 rather than 50. So I am still observing what's going to happen to gold as dollar possibly bounces over the next week or two. Moving on to coffee, I think a nice buying opportunity might arise relatively soon, maybe over the next couple of weeks. Usually coffee cycles last for about 145 days. Of course, they can be shorter. The ongoing cycle is 111 days old right now. So let's see what happens. Coffee is still in a downtrend, but as I mentioned, a nice buying opportunity might come up sometime over the next couple of weeks. Looking at the optimism index on coffee, as you see over the last year or so, A nice buying opportunity came when optimism index on coffee was somewhere around 35. A couple of weeks ago, optimism index came as low as about 42. Still pretty high, that's why I'm still waiting for a nicer entry point on coffee. Looking at our longer term view, at a couple of years or 3 years of history, we see that actually nice buying opportunities come when the optimism index is much lower, closer to 20. So again, I think we'll have to wait on coffee, but keep our eyes open for that buying opportunity anytime soon. Looking at crude oil is really pretty strong today. And just as I mentioned before as well, there is a small chance that the intermediate cycle in crude oil did finish somewhere in early September, with several pokes below the Bollinger Bands and the oversold level on the 14-day RSI, and with the intermediate cycle lasting for about 141 days. On the other hand though, as winter approaches, as more people sneeze and cough a little bit, possibly some healthcare concerns might actually drop crude oil a little bit lower over the next few weeks. Additionally, if the general stock markets drop over those next few weeks, that also might pressure crude oil to drop a little bit lower as well. So just like with coffee, I think an interesting buying opportunity might be coming up over the next few weeks in energy. Looking at the optimism index on crude oil, we are pretty low right now, and we also were pretty low early in September with optimism index somewhere around 35, 36. And that level of optimism would be good enough as a buying opportunity when crude oil is generally trending upwards, as it did, for example, in 2018. But also in 2019 and early 2020, when crude oil is not in any strong upward momentum, a nicer buying opportunity came when this optimism index was as low as 30 or even lower. So we are pretty close, and yes, there is a chance that the buying opportunity did actually take place in early September, but I think it's wiser to wait for another few weeks and see how a potential drop in the general stock markets might influence crude oil prices. And a similar idea applies to copper as well. Usually copper moves more or less together with the general stock market. We see that just like the stock market, since March this year, we've seen a very substantial rally in copper. Usually copper cycles last for about 32 weeks on average. The ongoing cycle is 29 weeks old so far. We are close to the average duration of a cycle, and with elections over the next few weeks, with possibly general stock markets lower over the next few weeks, I think on copper as well, we might see that nice buying opportunity over the next few weeks. And looking at the copper optimism index, it's pretty high at the moment. It's somewhere around 60, with buying opportunities over the last 3 years coming at about the levels of 30 or below. So I think it's still early to do anything about copper right now. In summary, the most interesting of these, I think, is gold, possibly the most controversial. Have we seen the end of gold's intermediate cycle in late September or not? Let me know about your opinion in the comments. For now, I wish you a wonderful day and good luck in your trades.